Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp. I'm Jerry Kimball, and I'm with Jamie Saponaro.
Oh,
today we are excited to have with us our guest, George Perreault. He's been in education a long time, and we're talking about something I think everyone is talking about, and that is digital learning. One of the things that George can bring to us is a lot of experience. George, could you tell our listeners just a little bit about some of the experiences you've had in education and with digital learning?
You bet. So I started my career in 1976, and back then multimedia meant that I was using colored chalk. And so that was my introduction into multimedia. But I was a science teacher, and then from there I was a high school assistant principal for a number of years. And then I moved to the district office in charge of instructional technology, and this is all in Orange County, Florida. So you may or may not know Orange County is the 8th largest school district in the country. While I was there, at the district office, I worked in ed services, I worked in professional development, I worked in IT, and I worked in curriculum. So, a lot of different experiences with different departments trying to bring instructional technology vent to all of those various departments.
You definitely were one of the early adopters, trying to get people to see the relevance in digital learning and why we need to do it. And I think one of the things that we would hear in the past is that the pendulum is moving from here to here and it always moves back. I would say now we probably have a whole new clock. I don't think we're using that same pendulum anymore. And the other thing I just wanted to say is, I think leaders, educational leaders, and many teachers saw the importance of digital learning, but there was never a reason to do it. There was never an immediate concern, and COVID brought along that immediate concern. So as we talk about a new phase that we're in, what do you see as some of the important things that we need to consider as we move into face-to-face, remote, and coming back as far as digital learning is concerned?
Well, most of our teachers have been trained in the face-to-face model. So, that has been sort of the way that things have been for a long time. And the need to use technology in the classroom was sometimes a nice to have, not a must have. And so as we've moved into learning, that there were a lot of teachers that adopted sort of a flipped classroom, and that meant that they were really using their technology for the students at home, for them to increase their learning, to do exploratory learning, to follow their needs, and then when they come back to school, to be able to help with those concepts that they really were not able to grasp while they were at home. And so as a result, we had different levels of people who were adopting these types of technologies. As the COVID hit, we were all of a sudden forced into the completely remote issue. And a lot of people were okay with it, but very, very many people have struggled with this whole process because we're so accustomed to seeing those children face to face. We're able to interact with them. We're able to do some things. For example, to be able to get immediate feedback, to be able to see the students and where they are, and be able to respond immediately to some of their needs, which was difficult when we went remote, and districts were scrambling as well. And now we have sort of a hybrid environment where students are maybe, and by hybrid, it means different things to different people. So we may have students who I have one grandson who is going to school 2 days a week, and then he's home 2 days a week, and he's doing independent work on the fifth day. In the district where I live right now, they have something called Launch Ed, and those teachers have some students in class and some students remote, which I think is one of the most difficult scenarios for the teachers. But I think overall what's happening here is we're just reinforcing what we've always believed. And I say we, I'm talking especially the three of us, that technology definitely has a place to enhance learning. But that being said, I think that the touch of the teacher is critical to guiding those kinds of experiences.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was well said. It can enhance it. It doesn't take the place of that teacher.
It never takes the
For
place
sure.
of an effective teacher.
Yes.
That is, an ineffective teacher is never going to be effective because they have technology.
Yeah.
Exactly. And technology almost exacerbates whatever was going on before. It really shines a light on what was happening with that teacher before. You look like you have something to say about that, George.
No. I mean, I think you're spot on, and the fact that I had a conversation with one of my grandson's teachers, and um, she's still doing everything she can do because she really cares about her students and trying to find new ways to engage them while still trying to meet the needs of the students in her classroom. And so, good teachers are good teachers, and while there's maybe some frustration, which I guess we'll talk about at some point, um, you know, they're still working just as hard as ever, probably harder, to try and meet the needs of those kids. And we salute all those teachers who are out there
Yeah.
who are making it happen despite many roadblocks that occur.
Yeah, there definitely are so many roadblocks, so many things to consider. And the teachers are really, I mean, some are struggling. It's really hard when they're involved in those scenarios that you described, where either they have to juggle teaching one group that is right in front of them simultaneously with a group that is home. They're sometimes doing two different lesson plans. So what are some of the other challenges and some things that could be considered when they're doing this?
Well, there's a lot there in that question. That's a loaded question for
Yeah.
sure. When I've spoken with teachers, and I also hear it on the back end. Again, I have a number of grandchildren who are in elementary school who are remote. Part of the issue we have, and I wouldn't have thought this necessarily, is parent involvement, if you will.
Mhm.
Because the
Right.
parents who are very concerned, especially in areas where you have stay-at-home moms, they're now able to see everything that's happening, and some of these parents become very, very critical of what's happening in the classroom, to the point where I heard a parent barge into a second grade classroom the other day when I was at my son's house.
Wow.
Trying to engage the teacher, which wouldn't happen in a face-to-face environment.
Right.
Because what's happening is, in this particular environment, it's synchronous. So the students are in class essentially, but in class online.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you've got that. I think one of the other things that teachers are struggling with, and again, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that this is hard, and that
Yeah.
the teachers who are out there are really doing the best they can, but there's just a lot of issues. I think one of the other things is that the teachers who are very comfortable with, let's say, worksheets and handouts, um, are struggling.
Yeah.
And this is what I often referred to as someone trying to be tradigital. In other words, trying to do
Digital.
things digitally that they did traditionally,
Right.
and trying to give kids PDF forms and having them try and fill them out or use a mouse to show their work is just a folly, trying to make that happen. So I think you have to look at other ways to engage folks. And we have to look at a curriculum being a digital curriculum versus, again, just something that's been digitized. We
Right.
don't want to take a PowerPoint and say now we have a digital curriculum.
Right.
That is not the definition.
Right.
Again, what we've done is we've digitized something without making it interactive, without providing any feedback, without all of that. So I think that these are all some of the barriers that teachers are facing, and of course, then you have the technology itself. Whether or not
Yeah.
the school district has the appropriate bandwidth, whether there are learning management systems, whether there are technology tools. Fortunately, where my grandkids are here in Orange County, teachers have smart boards and they've got cameras in their laptops. But again, they're using Google Slides to try and teach math, and she's actually presenting these things. And as a result, she's getting fairly good results with this, but it's just a lot of work. It's just a lot of work trying to get this done. And and so so a lot of it depends on what kind of equipment that they have, what the model looks like, and whether or not the bandwidth is there, both for the on the school side and on the student side. And of course, devices. We're fortunate that every one of the kids has a device here, has a Windows laptop, and that may not be the case everywhere.
No.
So that plus internet connectivity. So
Yep.
the list is very long, and I don't want to be negative about this. I'm just trying to acknowledge to those listeners out there the fact that this is not an easy thing, and that there are barriers, but there are solutions, and a lot of this can be overcome.
What are you finding as some of the solutions? Because when you talk about Tradigital, I think it's even deeper than worksheets. I think the whole pedagogy and the whole way of thinking has changed, that we want kids to have higher level thinking and not just regurgitate back, maybe like when we were in school.
Exactly.
And so we need to provide them some tools and things so that we can really kind of see what's going on in their minds and let them create. What are some things that you're seeing are helping teachers to make that happen? Some solutions, if you will.
Well, some of it has to do with the tools that are available, to the teachers. Whether they're using Google.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, whether it's LMSs or whether it's Google Classroom or some sort of a journaling app or something like that. I think those are things, if they have them available, they can do. I know that the science teacher that I spoke to is basically giving a list of things that they can have, that they can go purchase. Household type things to do science experiments. Some of them are taking videos of what they do. In fact, this one teacher was saying that she gave them sort of an open-ended assignment around, say, the solar system, and she said, "I just need you to." She didn't give them a lot of direction, which frustrates parents and sometimes the students, but
it's a good
she's
instructional
like,
practice.
It is. It's like, here's what I need you to do. I need you to demonstrate the planets, and I want you to show some sort of sense of size in relationship from one planet to the other and distance. And you could do it in your driveway, you could do it in your backyard, you could do it in your kitchen, you could do wherever. But she didn't say you have to use paper mache or you have to do a poster board or anything like that. So she left it open-ended for them to be able to do. But the struggle is more on the student and parent side to do that, but she is encouraging sort of next level thinking and doing some things to try and see whether they're grasping the knowledge. One of the other things that we've that she was doing is she's having the kids keep a math journal about what they've learned, so that they can pass that along for what they're doing. And then, of course, we've got some tools that are out there that'll help, things like Nearpod and Padlet and things like that are basically internet-based, so that those teachers can get some feedback from the students. Because oftentimes, if they're not on camera or whatever, you can't see that deer in the headlights look that you might see in the regular classroom. And allow them to do a poll everywhere would be another one. To be able to say to them, okay, I've done this, I need everybody to respond. Because sometimes the kids, even though that they may respond in class, they're reticent to speak online. We've seen that
absolutely.
And even the older kids, "Ooh, I'm on mute," that sort of thing. "Oh, I didn't hear that sort of thing." Whereas if you use some of these tools, at least you get some feedback. And if someone says, "Well, the answer is this," then the teacher could say, "Well, several of you," without necessarily calling them out, saying, "Well, several of you said this. Would anybody be willing to share how you came up with that answer?" So I think that these interactive tools that we have used in the classroom, certainly because they're internet based, can be used to to do that. There are a couple of other tools that are out there for sort of self-reflection, and one of them is the SAMR model, and the other one is the TIM, which is the Technology Integration Matrix. Both of these are great tools to be able to take a look at what you're doing and determine whether or not you're taking that thinking to the next level. In fact, the TIM model, the Technology Integration Matrix from the University of South Florida, actually has videos embedded in it that demonstrates some of the various levels of technology integration. You know, all the way from everybody's doing the same thing on their laptops at the same time to creating projects and doing, you know, project-based learning on the other end.
Right.
So these are great resources to be able to do that. And lastly, I think that if there's anybody who's listening to this who makes decisions about curriculum, and I'm talking about the folks who do the adoption. The adoption is critically important to this because, and I won't say in every instance, but oftentimes there is an over reliance on print, and that print material, while it's still valid, I mean, I would not want to teach a kindergartner how to read just using a computer.
Right.
I mean, I was a high school guy. I can't even imagine what these elementary teachers are going through. I can't imagine. You know, but part of what has to happen is when you're choosing a curriculum, you need to take a very, very close look as far as, you know, what does that curriculum provide? Does it provide, let's say, interactive activities that provide feedback? Does it provide videos? You know, because a video never gets mad if you watch it, if you ask it again.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
the video never loses its patience with you.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. And then the ability to provide feedback, the ability to actually answer questions or to do things online rather than try and do it in a PDF or a Google Doc. I mean, a Google Doc is certainly better, but it's better, I think, if you're picking a curriculum that allows you to do some of these things so that the child gets feedback electronically, and then the teacher can see whether or not they're still struggling or not.
Yeah.
So if you're a curriculum person out there and you're on an adoption committee, I would take a very close look at your rubric to decide, is this a digital curriculum or is this the same stuff that we had before, but now it's in PDF and PowerPoints?
Right. Right.
You know,
Great point.
that interactivity is very, very important to provide feedback.
It is.
Is through the interactive piece and talking to each other and being able to communicate with peers and with the teacher. That's how people learn.
Yeah.
So,
Well, right, and again, the technology can help determine whether or not that child is grasping the concept or not grasping the concept.
Right. Right.
And so in this environment, you know, it's hard to be on all day in front of a webcam. And I spoke to a high school.
yes.
I spoke to a high school teacher. She says, I got kids over here
Mhm.
sitting here in the desks, and then I'm at my laptop. He said I have to teach from my laptop, and so
Very
you know,
Yeah.
it's very, very difficult because she's used to being up and moving around and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, I think your solutions really frame it well because it really starts with, selection and those who are on adoption committees. Yes, you're choosing from a publishing company who will hopefully provide some technology resources, and that's not really the end of the curriculum because there it really starts with the development and what can be included in and support that. So that's
Right.
just the resource, and then the curriculum should really include all of the things that you mentioned, the interactivity, digital resources, opportunities for discourse, and following best practices that are part of TIMS and part of the SAMR model. And then teachers have those to utilize in order to employ best practices. So it really starts there, and then the tools, the technology tools, are just a support where the curriculum, the social emotional learning, that all kind of plays the lead. Really, is what should be the driving force to do that. So in using those solutions, the benefits, right? So we kind of touched on those a little bit. What ultimately are we trying to get out of leveraging either technology tools or curriculum tools what is the main benefit that we're really supposed to be expecting here, the goal?
Well, I mean, I think that the goal is to try and provide for the students a rich experience,
Yeah.
because it's as difficult for the students as it is for the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, I think that if used properly, the engagement certainly can be up. The kids, typically uh, are very engaged with the technology. My second grade grandson yesterday said, "It's a good day we didn't have any technology issues." He said, "I hope the big blue button works today, because then it'll be perfect." So so um, so I think the engagement is there. I think I think that sometimes we have to take a look at what our expectations are, because in an online learning environment, um, if you take it at a collegiate level or at an adult level, you're not expected to be on the screen 7 hours a day,
Right.
taking 6 different courses.
Right.
So I think some of the strategies that we use for adult learning need to be applied. In other words, um, you could, especially at the secondary level, you can provide assignments that are due several days out rather than sort of a
Yep.
nightly homework sort of a
Yep.
situation.
Yep.
Best practices for that. But we want teachers to be able to still try and maintain that interactivity.
Mm-hmm.
That social emotional learning is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships with those kids um, are so critical to their environment, and it's so critical to their learning. So the ability to maintain that and to be able to provide the feedback. And the other thing is, one of the benefits here is that we are providing for these kids 21st century skills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, this is not the last time they're going to be engaged with some kind of online learning.
Right.
I don't think anybody
Right.
thinks that the technology is going to become less involved in our lives as time moves forward.
Right.
Just take a look at what's happening right now. Okay, we have businesses who are shutting down their brick and mortar on a permanent basis because they are seeing that the working at home, working remotely has been as effective as going to the office every day.
Sure.
And I'm talking about an adult environment now. Okay, I think that the kids still need some face to face, but is that we're preparing them,
Yeah.
because in the past we were not preparing them for that world.
Right.
For the
Right.
of independent learning and in terms of working remotely. So I think that even though it's difficult, the byproduct of this is we're actually preparing them for a world that many of us did not grow up in,
Right.
and their parents as well.
Yeah.
You got to figure that the parents of these children were born in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And when the internet, the internet, when we were, at least when I was young, the internet was not even a thing.
Right.
And even when I started teaching, I didn't even have a TV in my room.
Right.
So it's, I used to say that the definition of technology is anything that was invented after you were born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So
at any rate, I think that that's probably one of the biggest benefits that we have, Jamie, is that we're preparing them for a world that's obviously going to look somewhat like what they're experiencing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You reminded me too, you were talking about tradigital as far as the tools that we use, but actually it just clicked with me. It's the practices too. Some of those are very tradigital, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're trying to relay the education in the same way we did it when they sat in front of us. We need to work on that as well.
Well, you're absolutely right. And and again, the teachers, those teachers who are creative are going to find ways to make that happen.
Right.
But I think that this is not something that you can fight. That train has already left the station.
Right.
So we have to find new ways. And I get it. They're overwhelmed because what else hasn't stopped? The lesson plans,
Yeah.
the MTSS reports, the
Observations.
ELL stuff. None of that has gone away.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so to a certain extent, administratively, we're doing things, where things are happening the same way they always have. And that needs to be adapted as
There
well, I
needs to be a
think.
shift in that too.
And a shift in how people are evaluated in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, you have to take a look at complaints that are coming in with a whole new set of eyes,
Mm-hmm.
because of that. We used to have helicopter parents, and now we have bulldozer parents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're not hovering; they're paving. They're clearing the way.
Yeah.
Um, and as a result, I think you have to take a look at your evaluation processes, and you have to take a look at, now what is effective. And I think the TIM and the SAMR models can certainly give administrators a better view into sort of the things they might be looking for, and more importantly, ways to support those teachers
Right.
to be able to help them embrace some of these things. So
Yeah.
I think that I think there's going to be a lot of benefits, despite a lot of negative press we have out there about digital learning.
Yeah.
So I think that the benefits are certainly worth talking about.
The purpose of trying to do the authentic implementation of technology and use it in a meaningful way, as you've been saying, is definitely going to allow for those benefits you described of, the engagement, the interactivity, and then ultimately kids are gaining those 21st century skills in collaboration and in creativity and communication, the things they're going to need for the real world, and obviously for now. So it's so important, and it is so important to include that interactivity, because kids shouldn't have that feeling of remoteness, even though they're learning in a remote situation. So we need to leverage those technology tools that exist, like you mentioned, and even like Flipgrid and Seesaw, different things to collect the informative data that teachers need when they don't have the class and really can get an idea as to what they do and don't understand. So leveraging those technology tools to do that. So all of those great solutions, I think, are really important, and in order to get these benefits.
Right,
Yeah.
and I see portfolios taking a larger,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
little larger uh, place in this whole environment, because since you can't see them all the time,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have a portfolio of, even, you talk, oftentimes we have, you have learning goals, and you have your exit tickets, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of those kinds of things that are out there that could still be used
Yeah.
in this environment.
Yeah.
You still have exit slips. What did you learn today?
Right.
Right.
Oh, sure.
It could be put in
Absolutely.
it could be put in a chat. It could be put
Mhm.
as part of a Google Doc. It could be part of, and these are ways especially for those teachers, to be able to get formative feedback,
Yeah.
for how they're doing and what those kids need.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think the thing that's sort of the elephant in the room is this has all happened without significant professional development. Uh,
Exactly. And I always say the best teachers are risk takers, and everyone is having
Yeah.
to be a risk taker right now, because they're in a world that we were never trained for, ever. So it's really a tough situation, and we just really praise all the teachers trying so hard and working so hard for our little kiddos, and all the kids too. We really appreciate and are really working, to planning for hopefully a great way for them to come out of this and hopefully be able to at some point be face to face again someday. But
yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of kids are missing their peer interaction.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Mhm.
and there are ways for that to happen as well. But again, there's a burden on the teacher for that,
Yeah,
because you can't
yeah.
just,
Hmm.
many school districts are just not going to allow free reign chat without some sort of moderation.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
Right.
tricky. It's tricky to do, but trying to find ways to allow for that time. I even say sometimes when the kids are, sometimes you have Wednesdays or Fridays where everyone is remote, just have one day where there is complete collaboration and somehow be able to kind of, peer in and listen in to each of those different Zoom calls or Google Meet calls or whatever they are, so you can moderate, or teachers can pair up and they can kind of divide up that way. But somehow just letting the kids, because it is so important to give them that opportunity so that they're not feeling like they're in this little bubble. But there's so many challenges, and we really value the work that the teachers are putting in, and we really feel for the kids in this situation as well, that they're missing
And we
out.
can't forget the parents. They're putting
And
blood too.
parents.
The parents are losing their minds.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying
Right.
that they're as
Yeah.
frustrated as we are,
Yeah.
especially if the communication doesn't happen exactly the way they should, or there are technical difficulties, or,
They can't find things they need.
right. And not everybody's parent is technologically savvy. And if if the student has an issue, they may or may not be able to help. So I do want to acknowledge that while we do have that the parent involvement can sometimes be problematic, I think that it's important for parents to keep that positive attitude, with the students. And I know an awful lot of parents are doing that. It's like, we know it's hard, but this is the way things are now. So we appreciate those parents who are struggling, but are still trying to maintain that positive, putting that positive spin on it for those students, because I think that's the majority of people who are doing this.
Yep.
We did a podcast not too long ago called It's a Family Affair, and it was so interesting to hear all of the positives that families felt have come out of this experience. Students becoming more responsible, caring for themselves, taking care of things on their own, and it was very positive. I was just excited to hear it all.
Yeah, because parents and guardians are teachers too. So they're kind of playing that role. And then at the same time, I agree, Jerry, those silver linings that came out of that podcast were really heartwarming. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to minimize that at all, because I think that
it's a challenge though. I mean, it is. It's a challenge for parents, but it's a challenge for teachers when, parents are trying to struggle through this as well. So there's so many different things coming into play that make it challenging. And I think what we all agree on, what links us, is that we really we're validating every concern and every challenge that all stakeholders have. And we hopefully, we're also going to be sharing some resources too that hopefully will be helpful. So we'll have those in the links too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
Absolutely.
Hard. Yeah.
What's linking us all up here, Jamie?
Yeah, so that we all feel that we are, validating these concerns and issues and challenges that the teachers and parents and students are having. So, we feel for you, and we're hoping that our conversation can shed some light, and we're going to also provide some resources as well. So hopefully that will be helpful to you.
And George, thank you for sharing all of your wise wisdom. We appreciate that. And you just have a nice historical view of learning and education. And it was great to hear from you today. Thank you.
You were both frozen there for a second. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Now it says, see, even those of us who are not involved in this get unstable connections. And,
that's right. It's just part of life.
It just, you have to be flexible, and I think part of the thing is you just can't, if it doesn't work, you got to go to plan B, just like just if you were face to face.
All right. Well, thank you, George.
You bet. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All righty.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.